you're going to design stuff and it's going to be in the shop in about a month.
Fucking hell.
Like that. And I went, wow. And all I could think was... most famous in the world for creativity. We've invented more than any other country in the world.
Yeah.
And I made these suits, and Paul Smith, loved them and offered me an internship to come and work with him. And I never thought about it. I've never thought about any of it. I never thought AllSaints was going to be a global brand. I couldn't decide which leather jacket to buy. And I'd ask the cleaner, and they would get really mad. And they'd go, "Why are you asking the cleaner?" When I told him I was going to leave, actually, we had a bit of a... He actually grabbed me by the throat. He was...
Flip. And you left in 2007.
Yeah.
Right. Can you tell me why you left? Well, Stuart, welcome to What It Takes. Thanks so much for coming on the show. How are you?
I'm good, yeah.
Doing well? Having a good week?
Yeah, really good. I've had... it's not a fashion week. It's not so important anymore, but we've had a lot of... the Spirit Awards at the end of the week, so we've had a lot of bands in, a lot of artists, and also, creators coming in and
fantastic,
all this sort of stuff. I'm doing a photo shoot on Tuesday, and it's just...
busy as ever.
It's just non-stop, yeah.
Amazing. Well, look, thanks for coming on the show. I'm excited to find out so much about your story and your journey, because you've got an incredibly fascinating one. But before we get to what I'm sure people will maybe want to hear from you, you started designing at 10, right? Tell me a little bit about that part of childhood for you. Why do people say you started designing at 10?
Well, because I've told them that. It started because I was a little boy growing up in Dundee, Scotland.
Dundee.
Council estate, single parent, 4 kids, no money.
Wow.
Mormon church. My mum's friends in the Mormon church gave us hand-me-down clothes, and we used to get like a suitcase, and I had an older brother and 2 older sisters, and nothing fitted me. I was this skinny little kid, and I got given... It's kind of funny now, and I've never really ever told anyone this, but it's really funny. I got given a pair of Bay roller trousers,
nice,
and I was about 9 years old, I think.
Right.
And I held them up and said, Bay rollers, you probably don't know, they were huge in around 1977.
Right.
And this was around 1978, or I think they were huge in 75. And I got the trousers in 77, not knowing that they were dead and gone. So I was like, Mum, can you take these in and put police in them like David Bowie? And I want to, she helped me, taught me how to sew, and I made these trousers, went and wore them out, thought I was really cool. Everybody's going, BC rollers, mate, you're 2 years early. And so it's kind of my first ever fashion faux pas.
Yeah.
And I never ever told anybody this story until about a year ago. The Sex Pistols said that the BC Rollers were one of their key inspirations to form the Sex Pistols.
Oh, really?
That they as young kids, they loved the music, and that's what made them pick up. And they couldn't play any instruments, but that's what they wanted to emulate. And actually, a lot of other people recently have been talking about what a cool band they were, and they were sort of the first ever boy band, but they were not a manufactured band. It was, I think, 4 Scottish kids. Anyway, that's how I sort of started out designing. It's the weirdest thing is what I do now at Stuart Trevor, the new sustainable brand that I launched 2.5 years ago.
Yeah,
is I take existing clothes and customize it, and so I've gone back to doing what I was doing at 8, 9, 10 years old.
Where did the sort of sense of style and fashion come from as a child, do you think, for you? Did you have people around you outside of your own influences? Was it quite natural?
Well, I was the youngest of 4 kids, and my elder sister was when I was about 8, 9, 10. She was probably 16, 17, and her boyfriends would come round, and this was around the period of punk.
Right.
And I remember a really funny story. Is one of my boyfriends came round, and he came round one day with long hair, looking like the BC Rollers or whatever. The next time he came round, he had a Mohican, and he had a leopard skin sort of neckerchief on, and I was going like, trying to get it off him, and he wouldn't let me get it off him, and eventually I wrestled it off him, and it was a pair of girls' knickers. It was kind of like, and I remember, so growing up in that era of punk, and then glam rock, and then punk, and then, you know, there were artists like Kate Bush came out. I was obsessed with Kate Bush. I was obsessed with David Bowie.
Really?
And I remember really clearly hearing him on my Auntie Joyce's teak stereogram and going over and listening to it and go looking up at my mum. And my mum, who's David Bowie? You know, and she's like, oh, you'll love him. And we watched him on Top of the Pops. And he had a pair of red, and I've seen the video now, it starts off and he has a pair of red boots on, and it scans up to this guy who looks, you know, otherworldly.
Yeah.
And I drove my mum mad about getting a pair of red boots, and she somehow saved up and got me them, and I polished them every night and slept with them under my pillow. I didn't know this because my siblings took the piss out of me for years. But I remember those red boots. I remember, I don't know what it was. No one else in the family was, and no one in Dundee, and there were no fashion shops and no...
I was going to say, Dundee, I've been a few times because I've got a family in Scotland, but it doesn't feel like the epicenter of fashion.
Not in the mid-70s.
Yeah.
Definitely wasn't.
Was there anyone around you that was encouraging that? Like in terms of like...
There was a wealthy family in the church whose father was like a Scottish country dancing singer, and they were quite wealthy, and they had really lovely clothes, and they were the prime source of hand-me-down clothes. So I wanted to, you know, I would look at them and think, I want to look like that, and then I wanted to look like David Bowie. So I would get my mum to, you know, teach me how to sew, put pleats in the trousers, like,
amazing.
You know, and and it was just, the funny thing is, I wanted, and I was. You're growing up in a period of the greatest, you know, between my age of, you know, 10 years old to 16 years old. Yeah. We went through, every year, there was a total new sound that came out. There was, you know, we went from glam rock to punk to skinhead to new wave to, you know, post-punk to, you know, bands like Depeche Mode, The Human League, Japan. Then Michael Jackson came, and then there was hip-hop. All of that all happened in a 5-year period. People wouldn't believe it, but all of those different genres and subcultures of, you know, start off with Teddy Boys and then mods and then rockers, and then, you know, all of these things happened as I was a little kid. So I witnessed it all, and I wanted to be a rock and roll star like David Bowie. And then, and the funny thing is, I ended up dressing them all. So.
Wow.
Next best thing.
Was there ever an interest to go into the actual music space itself?
I could never remember the words. I did. I even, you know, singing. It's funny now because I could probably rap Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Band. I can remember it all. Yeah. But I never ever tried to sing that. But I couldn't remember the words to songs that we'd written. I was in a little band at you know, uni, but I couldn't remember the words, and they just kept getting really fucked off because I couldn't remember the words, and I'm still like that now. It's all to do with, I've got quite severe ADHD, and part
me
of it
too.
is you just don't. I mean, there's no way I could remember all of what you're going to hear today. Just comes straight off the top of it. There's no way that I could memorize any of it or write it down.
Did you? When did you know you had ADHD?
Actually, my daughter came to me when she was about 14, so she's now 21. So 6 or 7 years ago, she said to me, "Dad, I think I'm going mad, and I want to, you know, can you get me an appointment? I need to see a doctor." Right. And I said, "Oh, what, you know, what's this about?" She goes, I can't concentrate. I'm kind of all over the place, and I think I'm nuts." And so I booked a doctor to see me. And they gave her a list of questions for ADHD, and every single question is like, you know, how difficult is it to concentrate, and are you easily distracted? And the answers were never, sometimes, now and again, and every time, all times, absolutely 100%. Yeah. And I was like reading the questions, ticking and going every single. I said, this is ridiculous. Anyone could get diagnosed with ADHD if you just, you know, absolutely all of the 100%. And the guy went, "Mr. Trevor, I think you've got ADHD." He said, "Why would anybody want to be diagnosed with ADHD?" No. And I went, "But wouldn't they?" And he went, that's another side of it. You must be the only person I've ever met that thinks, "Oh, I'd like to be diagnosed with ADHD." No, totally.
It's kind of become trendy now in many ways, right? I mean, I went through like a whole experience at school of like I was kind of in the generation where it entered the school world, if that makes sense. In terms of it was quite common to be tested in those variables. I was mistested and misdiagnosed countless times. But
I was told I was hyperactive.
Yeah, so going back to that, I mean, school for you being hyperactive or ADHD without knowing it and all that kind of thing, what was that like for you? Tough times or easy?
No, it was, I mean, I was absolutely obsessed with art and design, and I was fucking great at it, and useless at everything else. And I used to customize my school uniform. My mother married my stepfather. We moved to South London. Went to a grammar school with a uniform, but I used to customize the uniform. I had sweatshirts made instead of a V-neck jumper. And back those days, the teachers never really knew that I was wearing start off wearing like pegs, like pleated trousers instead of school trousers, or Farrah's or waffle, And other kids asked me if I would style them, so I would start selling clothes to kids at school. And then they realised what was going on. I ended up in detention every day for the next 4 years or whatever.
Really?
And I joke about that now because God, if they'd known then, they'd probably.
It's kind of funny, isn't it? Because they actually let you just be creative, right? Because they were just like, that's just. Oh,
no, it was in detention.
But at the same time, there was no essence of stopping you or trying to. That's the thing with, I think, things like ADHD now. It's like how we're maybe restricting kids when they're a little bit younger. When actually, like, I think a big part for me with ADHD is letting kind of explore that creativity a little bit.
Well, yeah,
dive into it. Do you know what I mean? It's like we can't, and I think the school systems are really hard to run. I don't have a way to suggest it, but I do think it's broken. But at the same time, it's like, how can you keep 270 kids creative? You've got ones that are really creative and ones that aren't at all, and they're more academic, and everyone's just so different. And I think that if you put people in boxes, sometimes the creativity doesn't come out.
I don't believe in boxes, but I do think it's a real shame because I have 3 kids and they've been through the school system, and they have had issues all the way through because they're not. I was never interested in the academic side, but I was really obsessed with the art side. And arts and design are the least, the smallest part of the curriculum.
Yeah.
It's a shame, really, because as a nation, Great Britain is most famous in the world for creativity. We've invented more than any other country in the world.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about fashion design or anything like that. Took the invention of the TV, the telephone. They're all design. Everything is design.
Totally. And it's that outside the box thinking. It's keeping it interesting. So going through the school system and then eventually uni, was the goal to fully go into the fashion space, or was it just your obsession?
I didn't even know, actually, when I was a kid, there was obviously no internet. You didn't know that you could do fashion as a business or as a career. I got told at school that because I was an artist or interested, the only job that they could recommend was an architect. That's the only thing they could think of.
Really?
And so I started studying, doing A-levels in physics and maths, and I realised on the first day that it's another world, A-levels from O-levels. And I turned up at a college to study, and I was on the art foundation course, and I'd woke up that morning with bleached blonde hair, but with big roots, and I dyed my hair burgundy, but by the time that I was ready to go, it was fuchsia pink, and I had to turn up at this college. It was all right in the art class, but I remember doing the physics and doing the maths and thinking, fucking art, there's no way my life's over.
Really?
And I sat down at lunch, and these kids came over, one looking like Robert Smith from The Cure. Like, hello, mate, can I sit with you? What band are you in? And I'm like, I'm not in a band. And they're like, you must be in a, you look like a rock god. There's someone else came over looking like the Thompson twins, shaved hair. What band are you in? Can I be in your band? And I'm like, I'm not in a band. And there's someone else came over, and then they were like, are you on the fashion course? I'm like, what fashion course? And they marched me up to the fashion room, and I walked in this room with sewing machines and mannequins and cutting tables, and I just thought, my God, I am born to be in this room. I've never realised that anything like that existed. And I went over to the tutor and said, I'm really sorry, miss, I've made a huge mistake. I need to be on this course. And she was like, I'm sorry, you didn't even look at me. I'm sorry, but you're too late. You'll have to go in next year. And the girl with the shake, she was like, Miss, look at him. Look at this geezer. He's like, honestly, she went, can you sew? And I went, yeah. And she went, really? And I went, yeah, made this outfit. And I'd had a boiler suit that I'd taken in and a leather jacket that I'd cropped. And
Right.
she was like, here's the 5 stages of making a pocket and the pattern and a bit of fabric. If you can make a pocket by the end of the day, I will consider it. And I went away and made the pocket in 5 minutes. And
Did you think I'm going to breeze this? This is easy.
I didn't even think about it. I just made the pocket and brought
Yeah.
it back to her within 5 minutes. She went, sure, miles ahead of everyone else. You can start tomorrow.
Wow.
And that's how I ended up in the fashion world.
Did she become quite influential as a teacher?
She was amazing, yeah.
Yeah.
She actually just got back in touch with me, a woman called Pamela Keeling.
Really?
Keeling. I became really good mates with her. She lived round the corner from me, so she ended up giving me lifts to school in the morning, to college in the morning, and take me home at night. It was kind of funny because everybody thought I was banging her.
Yeah.
Oh, it definitely wasn't. It was. She was like, it was.
That's amazing.
But she was very, very influential because she told me loads of. Introduced me to Jim Morrison, The Doors, lots of really cool. She was probably about 40 then, and I was like 16 or something. Wow. So, but really, I learned a lot in that.
And you reconnected with her just recently?
Yeah, but only by in Facebook Messenger or something like that. So I need to see. She told me, she must be about 90 now.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, wow.
But yeah, I'd love to be up there before
it's
too late. You know what I mean? But
yeah, of course. So what for you on the course? You're obviously learning so much. You're now starting to get an idea that you can do fashion, as a real thing, right?
I was making complete outfits, and we had like a mini show, and I was doing. I did a City and Guilds tailoring course with a Royal Huntsman tailor. This was in Northamptonshire, so they have all their hunts and all that sort of stuff. So I learned all aspects of fashion and creating and learned about designers for the first time, and then applied to Nottingham because I'd read about Paul Smith, who Britain's foremost menswear designer.
Was that when he was really like breaking through around that time? Right.
Yeah.
That was
so
kind
this
of
was
similar,
85.
Similar time to him hitting the top, if you will.
He just, I think around that period was when he had the huge deal with Japan, and he was in the paper all the time. So I wanted to meet him. Right. So I applied to Nottingham Trent in order to hopefully, if I could meet him, I'd get a job. So all of that was pre-planned in my head.
Yeah, sure. Was it quite hard to get? Obviously, you only just knew that you could work in fashion a few years before. Yeah. But actually getting into the space, obviously, there was a period of time in the sort of noughties and 90s, I'm sure you've experienced, getting into fashion was quite difficult, right? Known for being quite challenging to become successful. Was that the same for you then? Or was it different?
Because I, very, very fortunately, went to Nottingham, did a Paul Smith Mont Blanc competition. And
what was that, sorry, Paul Smith?
Mont Blanc is a...
Yeah, the pens and stuff.
Company. Yeah. Paul Smith did a competition and I made 2 suits. They were basically, I was taking the idea of taking the inside of with the lining with and putting it on the outside. And I did a Levi jacket with the pockets with the little, and I put that on the outside of a suit. Yeah. And I made these suits, and Paul Smith, loved them and offered me an internship to come and work with him.
What was that like for you?
I never did it because I won a Smirnoff Fashion Awards, and it was at the Royal Albert Hall, presented by Vivienne Westwood and Naomi Campbell. I won Menswear Day section. I remember, applying for it and making this outfit. It was on the runway, and I never thought for 1 minute I was going to win it. I think they said to me the day before we had to go down to London for the final, and they said, do you want to invite your mum and your dad and whatever? And I went, I hadn't even thought about that. So I got them tickets, but they were way up in the gods because I only asked for them at the very last minute. The whole Albert Hall was full of 10,000 people, however many people it fits.
So you'd already got an opportunity with Paul Smith at this point.
I had
from the competition, and then you'd enter another one,
and then I won this. Wow! And that was quite funny. The reason I've told you about because when they announced that the winner is Stuart Trevor, like that, and I just sat there, and all the kids like that, and all I could hear was, "That's my son!" like that, screaming her head off at the top. My mum at the top of the Royal Albert Hall, going, "I knew he'd win," and all this sort of stuff. And it's kind of like, I was like, "Oh God."
That must have been a pretty like overwhelming moment, no?
It was, because I just, I don't think I'd ever won anything in my life. And then...
was there any like valid... I mean, for you, it feels like you've been very confident in your art and your work. You know, you've had that direction. But what you sold me so far to this point, was there at all winning that and winning the Paul Smith element? Did that give you like a certain level of confidence or overconfidence at all?
Yeah, I always had it anyway.
Right.
Even as a young kid.
Or validation maybe? Like that you're being... There must be elements of that, right?
Yeah, obviously all that. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's not... I think it's just the ADHD. I think as a young kid, you just have no fear, do you? You just... And I never thought about it. I've never thought about any of it. I never thought AllSaints was going to be a global brand. I never thought that you know... So what happened was, the Smell of Fashion was televised, and David Reiss, the owner of Reiss on the King's Road, just up the road from here, he rang the college about 14 times and made me... Basically, the head of faculty said, you've got to go and you've got to bring this guy back. And I went, I don't want to work for him. I've got a job with Paul Smith. And they were like, you have to go and see him. And so I rang him, and he said, listen, I'll pay for a train to come down to London, and I'll put you up in a hotel and all. And I went to see him. Yeah. And I arrived in the King's Road, and this is around 1984 or something, 1985. And the King's Road was the epicenter of cool. It was the most stylish place probably in the world. And his shop was the busiest store. There was maybe 500 people in there queuing up at the till. He came down. I was like, God, I should take this seriously. It's Paul Smith had a tiny little shop about the size of this room in Nottingham, and one in Covent Garden. It was, this was a serious business. And so I laid out these Stuart Trevor Paul Smith suits that I'd made, and he was like, yeah. And he just handed me an envelope. This is David Reiss. And I opened it up. I thought, what's this? He goes, open it. And I opened it up, and there's like 500 quid in it and an airplane ticket. And I'm like, what's this? And he went, so next week is the world's #1 menswear fair, Pitti Uomo in Florence, in Italy, and you're coming with me. And I'm going to take you to the fair, and I'm going to take you around all the best designer stores in the world. You're going to stay in the best hotel in the world, and we're going to eat in the best restaurants in the world. And then I'm going to take you to the best fabric mills in the world, and you're going to choose fabrics and then take them to my factories that are producing for all the best designers in the world. You're going to design stuff, and it's going to be in the shop in about a month.
Fucking hell.
Like that. And I went, wow. And all I could think was, what am I going to tell Paul Smith? And I looked at him and he went, and the good thing is you don't have to tell Paul Smith. Like that. And I went, oh, actually, yeah, you're right. So I went, okay, I'll go. So I went. Did
you never tell Paul Smith?
No, I had to go back and tell. Well, I went back to see Paul Smith because this guy offered me basically 50 quid a day if I would come and intern.
Yeah, and
Paul Smith didn't have any money and basically said, I can't pay you over the summer.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, all right, then I'll see you later. and I went and started doing every Friday and Saturday for Reiss, and then every Easter holiday, summer holiday, I was the first ever designer at Reiss, working directly with David Reiss, flying over to Italy for Easter, going around all the fabric mills, going to all the factories, going to the shows.
The whole process. You didn't just see the design process.
He just basically threw me into the deep end and said, right, you go on then. What do you want to do with that fabric? And I'd be like, you've got any bomber jackets? Why don't we do a bomber? And he would like, go on then. So we put bomber jackets in Reiss, and they bombed, they bombed out. And loads of stuff, like hoodie. No one had hoodies in the mid-80s. It didn't exist in the UK.
It's not a thing.
No. And there was an external tutor in Nottingham that came to, teach at the uni. Yeah. And he used to wear a vintage hoodie that he bought in America. It was a vintage Levi's one. And I had to describe this to David Reiss. So it's like a cardigan, but it has a zip, but it doesn't have a collar. It's got like a hood, and it has little strings, and it's knitted fabric, but it's not knitwear. It's like a sweatshirt, but it has sort of ribbed, like knitted cuffs and a little sort of pocket on it. And he was going, "Oh, it sounds great." So, I was describing this. And then when we went to, this was on the plane to Italy, when we went around all the shops, hoodies were the big thing. And all the designers had launched, And he was like, "The boy's a genius." So I ended up just getting free reign to.
Yeah.
So at 18 years old, I was designing and producing collections for Reiss. Before that, it was a suit company really that bought in from other brands, from Italian designers, and I put together the whole Reiss concept or whatever. And he basically had everything. I mean, you'd start off doing like one hoodie, you'd order like a couple of hundred or whatever, and they'd sell out in a week, and then you'd be like, whatever you want, just do whatever you want. And
did you start to have a team being built around you, or was
started
it still,
taken on? Yeah, assistants.
Was there any sort of weirdness around how younger you were and how the team around you? What was that like?
He kept employing people that were older than me, and trying to put them in charge of me. But of course, there's no way they could tell me what to do because they've got super ADHD.
Yeah,
and they would confide in me and go like, "Listen, he's people that were working at Paul Smith would be employed and poached to come there to lead the men."
Was it they were competing quite a lot then? Back in
no, because they would just go, "I can't compete with you. I'll just be here and I'll put anything you want into work." So, and it was kind of funny like that. And then what would happen is after a couple of months or 6 months, he would get rid of them because he realised that, why am I paying this geezer, 40 grand a year and I've got this kid
who's doing everything.
So
what was the biggest lesson for you working with him?
He was really, he went, the business went through administration and then it became, huge success. And we met these guys that were doing really amazing silk shirts out of Hong Kong. And I said to David, I'm booking flights to Hong Kong. And he went, "Don't be stupid. These factories won't make for us. They want huge quantity." And I went, "David, we're going to Hong Kong. I want to find out where these shirts are made and I want to make bomber jackets and parkas out of it."
Yeah.
And we booked the flights, went to Hong Kong, and I was we're in a hotel room. I had no idea what to get. And he said, what do we do now? And I went, "We'll get the phone book out." And I started looking under silk. And it has, in the Hong Kong phone directory back then, had silk factories. And it said something about the Hong Kong Trade Development Council. So I rang them up and they said, "Yeah, come and see us." We went there. They gave us a list of people that made for Ralph Lauren. And I think Jigsaw was a big... making silk parkas and things like that for women. I wanted to do things like that for men. So they said, "Oh yeah, this factory in North Hong Kong at one of the new territories, they make all the Jigsaw production." So you got in a taxi, went there in this sort of derelict industrial dump, and you come out of the tank. That David's going, "Don't be stupid. Who the hell have you taken in?" I'm like, "David, he says here that you get in the lift and you go up to the 26th floor and the doors open and there's this marble and glass and stainless chrome and you walk in and they're like, "Oh hi," and they've got all the Ralph Lauren's collection, the Jigsaw collection, the Donna Karan, and we basically started making all this stuff there, and just all of it just happened kind of serendipitously.
No, definitely. What did he teach you though? Like looking back now,
drive, determination, whatever happens, that you don't give up. If but a lot of that was me, because I didn't have any sort of cut-off point. I just always thought, well, I'm going to Hong Kong. There's no way you can do it. And we're going, and we would go and do it, and that was that's how things happened. But he basically allowed me, and so in my business life since then, I think it's really important to listen to the younger generation and listen to other people and ask their opinion. And I used to get in trouble with this a lot at AllSaints, where I'd have assistant designers, and I would be in a buying meeting, and we couldn't decide which leather jacket to buy. And I'd ask the cleaner, and they would get really mad, and they'd go, "Why are you asking the cleaner? We I haven't done a degree at St Martin's for nothing." And I went, "Yeah, that's the problem, mate. You're all from St Martin's, and she is normal human being.
Yeah,
I want to know
different,
what someone who hasn't been at St. Martin's likes.
Yeah, 100%.
So, I think
that exposure to other people's opinions is important.
Yeah, it's really important because we're not all, all the customers are not all St. Martin's graduates.
No, totally. So you worked at Reiss till 19, 20?
28.
28?
So I was there from 18 to 28, yeah.
Wow.
And then
10 busy years.
Yeah, yeah.
And then what made you want to leave?
Well, I don't know. I wanted to do my own brand. I'd been offered several different roles. I'd been offered a job at Joseph as the buyer, but I didn't, but I ended up getting my mate the job, and he ended up traveling around the world buying from, Helmut Lang and all the coolest designers in the world. And I was kind of jealous of that, but I wasn't, I knew that for some reason I had it in my head, if I ever do anything, it's going to be under my own thing. Right. And one of the factories in Hong Kong that we had been doing all the production with came to me and said, "Oh, listen, we've got a £10 million order book, and we're going to give you 10% commission if you become our agent and look after the UK." And I was like, £1 million?
That's big money, no?
I was like, if you've got that much money, I've got a business plan. And I showed them the plan for AllSaints. And they went away and they came back a couple of months later. And basically, on the day that they told me that they were going to fund my own label, I also got given offered a job in New York with a company called Club Monaco. They were Canadian. And when I went to the interview, I said, if you want to be a global brand, you need to open a retail and design office in New York. I'm not moving to Toronto. If you open an office in New York, I'll move there. They rang me on the same day to say, "You've got the job. We've found premises in New York, and we're gonna." And I went, "Oh, fucking hell!" And I said, "I've been offered to do my own label." And the guy went, "You know what, Stuart? Take the offer, because you know what? If you come and work for me, you all you'll ever think is like, I wish I'd done my own label." And it was great advice. So that was one of the best.
Fair advice as well.
Yeah.
Really fair advice.
I met him about 10 years later. This guy, Joe Mimbrand. I met him in Paris at Premier Vision, Fabric Fair. He came walking in, went, "Stuart, my God." Look, AllSaints by that point was rocking.
Yeah.
So he was like, "I'm so proud of you, man," and all this. It was really, that was kind of sweet. Yeah. And really I also met Paul Smith shortly after. I met him when I started Reiss at this fabric fair in Paris, and he was on a fabric booth, and he was like, "Stuart, what are you doing here?" And I went, "I'm working." He went, "Where?" And I nodded at David Reiss, and he just looked at me because they were arch rivals.
Yeah.
And then when I launched AllSaints, I saw Paul Smith at this fabric fair 10 years later, whatever, and he came walking all the way over and tapped me on the back. I turned around and he went, "Congratulations, mate. Good luck." And what? So that was that was really sweet. Yeah, really nice.
So taking the jump to launch AllSaints. So you'd obviously been a part of Reiss when it'd been through so much in 10 years.
Yeah.
Where did you start when it came to AllSaints? What was the first step you think you took to starting that brand? I know you got the manufacturer and you got the partnerships in place, but like, what's day one?
Well, day one, so you need this, from zero, you've got to find premises to a design studio. And I had a friend of mine who was external tutor from Nottingham. She had a big loft space in Shoreditch,
nice, on
Worship Street. I'd already worked out that I was going to call it AllSaints,
right?
Because my initials are ST, like Simon Templar, the Saint, the Roger Moore character. I'm doing that because he drove a Volvo P1800. I bought one when I was 20, drove it around London, still got it. And everybody used to go, it's getting a major respray at the moment.
Awesome.
And it's the most beautiful car. If you get a clip of the car.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the most beautiful car. And everybody used to call me the Saint. So I had a list of names like the Saint, Mr. Saint, ST, I had all these. And when I was on Notting Hill Carnival one, and I looked up and thought, AllSaints. That's good. That rhymes, if you say, "Well, where's your jacket from?" AllSaints. It's better than Mr. Saint or the Saint or whatever. So I registered that name, but then I got told that the NFL have the New Orleans Saints. You're not going to get it. So I found out that the NFL have an office in London, contacted them, went to see them, showed them the port. The guy went, "I love what you're doing. As long as you don't do American football shirts, you gotta go ahead from me. So I said, all right, can I get that in writing? And he went, yeah, I'll send it to my secretary. And I went, do you mind if I sit here while she types it? I wasn't going to leave the room.
Just in case he changed his mind.
Well, yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
So he did that, signed it, gave it to me, and we were like, oh, man, you know. And so then you sit down in an empty room. So I was in the corner of this huge derelict loft that this tutor had her collection, Italian collection that she designed.
Right.
Within 6 months, she was in the corner, and it was my collection that was there. Wow. I sat down, and I had been buying vintage military sort of pieces, like bomber jacket like this,
right?
A flak jacket, parka, flak, you know, what do they call, cargo pants, and I wanted to limit it to a certain amount of fabric. So I had a nylon like this. I had moleskin, cotton moleskin, and wool flannel, and I basically did the bomber jacket in nylon, moleskin, wool flannel.
Right.
The parka, nylon, moleskin, and then I did knitwear. I chose 2 yarns, and I put it.
Is that from like a business decision as well as a style decision, because you knew you could get the fabrics and make that stretch?
I knew that I would be able to meet the minimums if I had 7 styles in one fabric.
Clever.
And I didn't know whether nylon was going to be successful. No one really wore nylon.
Oh, really?
But Prada had just come out with the Prada rucksack. This was in 1994. It was the hottest thing in the world.
Right.
But it was mainly a rucksack. But I loved it. I thought, I'm going to do a whole range in nylon, the Prada nylon. So we did. No one else had done it. Max, parkas, bomber jackets, you know, field jackets, cargo pants. And we set it up we did Paris Fashion Week, set it all up, and I didn't have any money, so I just banged a nail in the wall and put a hanger on it, and hung a bomber jacket with a scarf and the cargo pants underneath, and I'd got a guy contacted me and said, oh, I heard you're doing your own collection, I can make really great boots. So I made boots and I put them underneath. So we had like 8 outfits all lined up. And I left I think it was like a Friday night. It was you set up on the Friday, and then the first day is on the Saturday.
Got it.
About 11 o'clock at night, the people are kicking us out. There's me and two brothers called Dean and Dan Cato. They were launching the following day. The day that I launched AllSaints, they were D squared. And they were opposite me, but then we both got kicked out. We remember walking to the security guards taking us to the exit, going, you know, monsieur, you have to off on cool, you know, all this, you know, you have to leave, you have to.
Yeah.
And so we were just going, oh, well, tomorrow's another day, good luck, and shook hands, and we let the following day, oh my God, there were queues of people trying to get on our booth, queues of people trying to get on these. Everyone else was dead. We were.
Was there much hype about what you were launching? Because obviously in the fashion world, 10 years with Reiss, people knew you, right?
British designers.
Right, fine. But in terms of like a wider audience, was that a bit of a shock to the people going to that fair because they didn't know you were going to be there? Like, what was the positioning?
Yeah, I didn't actually. So I with Reiss, people don't even know this, but back then I launched Reiss as an international wholesale brand, and we sold it to Barney's New York, Saks Fifth Avenue, Selfridges, Harrods, Harvey Nichols. So all the buyers from there. But I actually didn't contact them then because there was no, emails didn't exist, social media.
Right.
I had their telephone number and I did have a fax machine. So it was, you used to have to fax. But I just thought, you know what, I'll go to Paris, they'll all be there and it'll be a nice surprise.
Right.
And I know some of the kids my assistants that used to work for me at Reiss were on the stand with David Reiss, and of course, these buyers, the Japanese and the Americans, they'd come on and go, "Where's the kid? Where is he? Where's the man?"
Are you cool with David at this point?
I am now. I wasn't then.
Oh, you weren't.
Oh,
so you didn't leave on good terms.
He said he's dead. He's dead.
Oh, really?
And they were like, "You're joking." And he went, "Yeah, he's dead. Mahola, he's dead." He's like, and then the guys, and I had no idea this was going on. My mate told me that night.
Got it.
But the other guys came round and some of the Americans were like, "Stuart, my God, he told me you're dead." Like this, and I went, "No, me." I said, "I'm dead to him." And
why was that? Do you want me asking?
Competition,
right?
He didn't want. When I told him I was going to leave, actually, we had a bit of a he actually grabbed me by the throat. He was
Flip.
He was fuming because he thought I was going to try it. And I went, David, I'm just a kid. I want to do, you did your own business. I want to do mine. Please.
Do you think he didn't understand that at the time?
He just thought I was going to try and put him out of business.
Right.
But the problem with at that point was he was 100% reliable on me.
Right.
I ran everything to do with
So
design.
he was worrying. He was just concerned what's going to happen to
He
the
was just
business.
worried how am I going to replace this kid? And I think he employed something like 6 people after all.
Wow.
I'm not just saying it. It was kind
No, I get it. Yeah. So you get there in the morning and there's crowds everywhere.
Yeah,
That must have been a nice feeling.
It was unreal.
Yeah.
The funniest thing was there was a buyer for one of the big department stores, and she was waving at me from the back of the crowd, and I was thinking, oh God, my mum's told one of her mates. And I just went, sorry, go. You'll have to. I said, I'll see you later. And I was opposite French Connection, and the guy that owned French Connection, Stephen Marks, was there, and I saw him laughing. And my mate worked for him, and he told me afterwards that Steve was going, look at that guy, he's a fucking idiot. He's told House of Fraser to do one. The guy's an idiot. He's never going to get anywhere. And of course, she came back at the end of the day. And then by that point, I'd realised it was House of Fraser. She came on the stand and wrote a £500,000 order. So it was...
So how much did you do in orders in that day?
1.2 million.
Which, for context...
In 1994.
But that doesn't happen.
No,
right?
Never. No one ever does anything like that.
How much would that be now? Like
5 million, 7, something like that. I mean, I don't think we did it all on that day.
No, but you're just at that event.
At that event, probably about $500,000, and then there were people like she sat down and wrote the order, and how they did it is they write down an order and they go, right, okay, and this has happened quite a lot. They write the order and you think, well, it's not a bad order, 10 grand.
Yeah.
And they go, but we've got 14 shops, so times that by 14. So you're like, oh, fucking hell, 140 grand. Okay, great.
But what are you thinking at that point? Because at this point, you're bootstrapping it, right? You're literally...
Well, no, I had the Chinese production company.
So
they were going to fund it, but they completely shit themselves because they were like, how are we going to fund this? So they had to go to the Chinese bank and they borrowed money against property, that they owned in Hong Kong. And then, so there was another part, leads on to another story, that in 1997, Hong Kong went back to the Chinese.
Yes.
So property prices devalued by 50%. So the bank called in the loans, and I was doing about 4 million, 5 million turnover.
Wow. 97.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I suddenly they wanted £1 million off me. We were like, I'm running everything. Even though they're partners in the business, they knew, they were like, you can't pay anyone. I'm like, well, the only people I pay are you, HMRC, the factories and the fabric mills and the staff. And he goes, you can't pay any of them, just pay it all to me. And I'm like, I can't. So I went for business advice. I didn't realise that business advisors basically means insolvency practitioners.
Right.
They said, basically, you're insolvent. If they're going to make you pay them the money, number one, it's illegal, it's preferential payment, and number two, you're insolvent. So, and I didn't know what to do. But at that period, the guy that used to be the retail director at Reiss, he had fallen out with David, and David Reiss, and he came to me and he wanted to open franchise AllSaints stores. He was in Birmingham. So we opened an AllSaints store under franchise with this guy in Birmingham. And so when I was having the problem with the Chinese and we had to liquidate the business, it was around 2000, he said, well, I'll raise some money and you and I will work together. And, how do you feel about that? And Brommy, and I went, yeah, great. And he came to me and he went, right, what do I like to do? I'd like to do the accounts and dealing with the staff and looking after the retail. And I was thinking all the bits that I fucking hate. I went, yeah, great, yeah, go on then. And he came to me about a year later and he went, yeah, fucking yeah, no, didn't you? And because basically he was doing all the shit jobs and I was designing collections.
Yeah. How did you start to build that team in those early stages? There was obviously quite a few people when you're getting those big orders coming through, right? Building your team was quite...
in the very, very beginning, it was just me. And then the funniest stuff was There was a girl. So I used to go fly backwards and forwards to Hong Kong, and the ground staff at BA used to greet me, and one of them said, "I'm moving back to London and I'm looking for a job." I went, "Oh, you can come and work for me." So she came and was the first employee. She started, and this was hilarious. Computers didn't exist back then, 1994. So we had a big old ledger, and on every page we had, bomber jacket, nylon, colours, black, khaki, sizes, small, medium, large, extra large, Selfridges, 10, 20, 20, 10, 10 small, 10, 20 medium, 20 large, Harvey Nichols, 5, 10, 10. We had to do all that, count all that. She did all that. So then we would collate all the orders, everything done manually, like in an old ledger. And I kept these books for years because I used to put the little swatches of fabric in them. And it was really, really beautiful. I used to keep a record of all the fabric swatches that I wanted to buy, and then the ones that I did buy, and put the collection, but there was one member of staff, and then when I realised that we had to get the production in, then I needed a sales guy, so I rang up somebody that I knew, a family friend that was working for Armani or something, and he came and he started doing the sales, and so you just built. It was all do you know what? Okay. Virtually every person I've ever employed is word of mouth. I've never used a HR, what are they called?
Like a Indeed or a LinkedIn or whatever like that.
Never. No, that didn't exist.
Of course,
it was, but no, it used to be recruitment firms.
Yes.
Everybody used them, but I never trusted them actually. Now I know recruitment. I know people that run those sort of business. Well, they hire people, and they sign you up, and they get you a job. And 2 years later, they ring you up and go, "I've got another job." People use that.
Totally.
I never ever did any of that. Everything was word of mouth. It was, I'd meet people. They would ask me, "I'd love to work with you," and I'd just make a note of it in my book. And then, a year later, I'd be like, "Oh, hello, remember me?" And
go from there.
That's it. Yeah.
In the early 2000s, so once you got through that kind of difficult time with all the finances and those elements, and AllSaints at this point is really flying, right? There's a couple of years of it really starting to kick off in the early 2000s. What was driving that?
Just so we decided that we would stop the wholesale, that we would concentrate on retail, because I had 3 stores. This partner had the one in Birmingham.
Right.
He ran around finding empty units and did deals with landlords. In 1 year, we opened 5, 6 stores. So we opened Leeds, Manchester, Nottingham, Glasgow.
Yeah.
And every store we opened, and this is the funny thing as well, we had no money, but we'd get the store on 6 months rent free, and a deal on it because the landlord, needed somebody in the store.
Yeah, of course.
But we didn't have any money to do the shop fit. So I used to go around like junkyards and get old rotten, old rusty cabinets and put PVA glue on them to stop the rust and put them, and that would be the shelving unit. And we basically designed and created these industrial looking stores that were semi-derelict, and then we would make a really nice cabinet that would go in, and that would be, and at the time I did it because we had no money and we wanted to open quickly, but it became like the coolest store in the planet, and everyone then copied it. Like, you'd see Selfridges and Hugo Boss even like putting in rusty shelving units and things. So this was all hilarious because we did it because
you don't know our option.
Money, But I, there was a plan there. I'd been to Berlin. There was a nightclub in East Berlin called Cookies, and it was a bombed out bank.
Right.
That was
wow.
All the walls were like holes in the wall, but in the middle of it, they had a bar that was gold with all the lights, and it was. I just thought, what a fucking cool shop that would be. So when we would go in and rip out I hated plasterboard as well, because that was when Zara first started over there. They had these white plasterboard boxes. So I didn't want any of that. So I'd rip out the plasterboard and then put chains and from the ceiling to the ground and then rails on it and created a very unique looking retail concept.
Yeah.
And
do you think that was a big driver of the retail success? Was the stores being so different? Because I remember, now forgive me because I was born in 96, so I do remember the AllSaints stores around sort of being, my going to secondary school is when I started, buying AllSaints.
Well, around 2000
5, 6, 7 is the first like trip out with my mates and buying clothes and that kind of thing. But it was so different.
There was nothing
else.
like it.
Yeah. Do you think that was a big driver?
Yeah, 100%. I think that there was nothing like it clothes-wise, and nothing like it as a retail concept. Nothing existed like that, and so it was really unique. And we used to take pictures, stores off pitch. So then we put those like fairground lights with the AllSaints, so that you could see it from Oxford Street. You could look up to Market Square, which was a sort of nothing. Nobody was retailing there, but you could see the name in lights, and so people would be like, "What's that?" and walk towards it.
Go straight into
so we did that all over the country. It's kind of funny as well, because we were sort of like, I remember that shop in particular off Oxford Street is where all the Top Shop, Arcadia, Ted Baker, all these other brands were all based around there, and all the staff, the designers, used to come in on their lunch break and buy things. And I would be there, and I'd be like, "Oi," like that. I'd go, "Honestly, I promise you, I'm not ripping it off. And all that. I promise you, this is for me." And I went, "Well, don't you go telling that fucking Stephen Marks that where you got it from and all that. So maybe let you have an AllSaints bag." And they would laugh, and they would say, "I promise you, I'd never." And words were getting back to me that people like Stephen Marks and Ray Kelvin from Ted Baker were going like, "Who wears that fucking stuff?" It's like David used to call it cheap disco rubbish. He used to.
Why were they so against it?
Rubbish.
Why were they not? Do you feel like they weren't really accepting you as a designer?
They didn't understand it. They didn't understand. Who would want to pay £100 for a pair of jeans that full of holes, or who would want T-shirts that I used to get shotgun blast these T-shirts and then wash them and hang them up, and you'd get T-shirts that were all frayed up and fucked, and people, we used to hang the shotgun cartridge round on a chain around the neck of the T-shirt, and we'd sell the T-shirt for £200 or 120 or something, and people, no one did anything like that. I remember getting a phone call from a factory in Turkey once, and the guy went, "Mr. Trevor, you are a very horrible man." I went, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You need to start paying your staff more money." I'm like, "Well, what are you talking about? This guy here, he's like a chimney sweep. He's like a peasant. Every piece of clothes has holes in it." Oh, I went, "Mate, that's the look. Like, he's going to show you. You've got to replicate that."
Yeah.
No one could really understand the whole idea of doing. We used to do like cut the edges of things and have raw edges and. No, but that was. I mean, you would have a normal jacket that looked like everything normal, but just around the edge would be frayed edge, frayed random.
At what point do you listen to like what other people are saying about your art and your styling and your designer? Because
listen.
No, totally. I'm just saying, like, how do you digest it? Because I've always, as a creative person that you're so creative that you are, I always wonder for you, when do you listen to the criticism versus the opinion, and how do you differentiate that?
Well, we never realised what we were doing, but at that time, they came up with a name for it, and I was. They called it what's it called? Reactive buying. I never realised what that meant. Reactive buying,
right?
So what I would do is, if I wanted, so I'd have a bomber jacket like this, and I would get a couple of them and just cut the cuffs and cut the hem myself and fray it, and we put it in the store, and if on a Saturday, people bought that, and what was happening was people would pick it up and go, "My God, I'm, bring it straight to the till." So then we'd go, right, we've got to get them made with the raw edge. So we would test the water all the time, but we'd never commit to huge amounts of stock of anything. We would try it, and if it worked, then we would go in deep. And, we started off with a leather shirt. I called it the rock shirt. Yeah. I always wanted to be a rock star. Yeah. So I thought, what does a rock star wear? Wears a leather shirt. So I did this leather jacket with studs, and it was lined, but it was like a granddad shirt with a sawtooth pocket, press studs, and I think I ordered something like 50, 100 to start with, and I remember the guy from Birmingham going, they sold in one day, and he was like, I said, well, you better order like 500 of them, and he went, no, you'll have to come up with another design. I went, fuck off, I'm ordering 500. So we ordered 500 and they sold in a week. So then we were writing, we're going to order 1,000. It was worrying because you never knew. I mean, that
when it stops,
yeah,
right?
with the biker jacket, that was the same thing. But as you went, they're still their best-selling jacket 20 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was your favourite year of All Saints for you?
I think around 2005, 2000, I got in touch with bands like the Kings of Leon, and they came in, they'd got dressed head to foot, and I was good backstage with them, and Mick Jagger, and Chrissy Hine from the Pretenders, and hanging out with, going out, Natalie Imbruglia and Radiohead, and going out and to clubs with them and things like that. And then, so there was a lot of fun. So I wanted to be a rock star, and then I ended up dressing all of them. So and hanging out with them. So it was, almost like the next best thing. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
And you left in 2007. Yeah. Right. Can you tell me why you left?
Oh, so I had someone who was supposedly my best mate. I'd been hanging out with him for a couple of years on and off. Even went on holiday with him and his family and my kids and the Christmas Day. He could see, he was the husband of Karen Millen.
Okay.
Karen Millen, he built it up with her, sold it for 60 million to the Icelandic bank.
When did they sell that? In the early noughties?
2003 or something like that. And so he basically had nothing to do. So he used to ring me up and go, how is it going? And we had shops that we opened I remember we opened a shop in the Bullring in Birmingham. And they rang me. I was round his house on a Saturday evening, and they rang me to say, guess how much we took? And I'm going, God, I don't know. God, he goes, guess. And I'm not, I can't, I think he goes, good, just tell me, guess. You did 25 grand last week, so you must have done more because you're ringing me. 30 grand. Keep going. I'm like, 32?
So wait, they did 25 grand the week before, and on a Saturday night.
On a Saturday,
sorry.
And then this is following week.
Yeah.
So the rate, they just kept it, and I'm like, 50? And they were like, keep going. I'm like, you're fucking joking. He's like, 55 grand. He goes, we did 55 fucking grand. I'm like, Jesus Christ. And Kevin is this guy. He's going like, what? How much money did you take? And I went, you won't believe it. We did 55 grand in Birmingham today.
Because what was the average selling price of a product then? Between what, like 100 to 300 quid?
Leathers were 300 quid.
Right.
So we'd probably sold
thousands of leathers.
100 leather jackets that day.
55 grand.
That's 100 leather jackets, 300 quid, was that 30 grand?
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know. But there was, remember, there was menswear, there was women's wear.
Yeah.
There were jeans that were 80 quid.
The shoes and stuff at that point.
Shoes, boots, the boots. I'd done these boots.
Yeah.
They were like this, but I put a zip on the inside.
Right.
No one had ever done that before. I got a pair of US paratrooper jump boots from World War II, and they had a zip down the inside so that if you jumped out the airplane and you broke your leg, they could unzip the boot off.
Yeah.
So I put this zip on the inside of the boot.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, we couldn't get up. We were selling 100 pairs of them a day.
What made it go from 25 grand one week and then 55 grand a day?
We opened one week, it did 25 grand. The following week, it did 55 grand.
And then it kept going?
Yeah, it just... And then we had shops in Leeds doing 60 grand on a Saturday. We ended up putting in 2 tills. And then we ended up putting in 4. Like we had 2 on the ground floor, then 2 on the upper... It was a phenomenon. And
so he's hearing this conversation?
He heard this conversation, and he rang the Karen Millen. This is before it must have been before he sold it, because he rang the Karen Millen shop next door and asked them how much they'd done, and she said 8 grand. He phoned, you fucking sacked! And he sacked the girl, and I didn't hear any of this, but my mate rang me back and he goes, are you with that guy from Karen Millen? And I went, yeah, why? He goes, because the manager's just come in crying her eyes out. He said, apparently you told him that we did 55 grand. I went, yeah,
his friend,
he's a mate. And he went, he fucking sacked her. He's rang her up. We rang her up and screaming, and I
flipping out.
I was like, and I went, Kevin, have you said? He went, yeah. He goes, of course I did. He goes, I want your manager. And I was like, so there he wanted to get involved with me, and he was like, listen, you're onto this. This is fucking believable. I want to be your partner, and I'm gonna, we were doing about 15 million. He's like, I'm going to get you to 100 million.
50 million in what, 2006, 2007?
Yeah.
Right. Wow. It's big, even big for them, right?
I mean,
50 million is still a big
I'm from a
business.
council estate in Dundee.
Yeah.
1 million quid's a lot of money.
Yeah,
to me.
totally.
But, so it was, you know,
Do you think that there was a lot of like, for you, because I can't imagine how overwhelming it must have been. I know that you've got your mindset of like, you just run with stuff, right? I can tell that.
yeah,
from
but
what
you
you're saying.
begin to get worried.
But surely you're a bit like, this is getting out of hand.
Well, it was a little bit worrying because then, you know, starting off ordering 100 leather jackets and you're now ordering 1,000 and you've got no idea whether you're, you know, it might not carry on. And I knew that there was a recession coming because I'd been through it with David Reiss and I'd seen...
That was the 90s recession, right?
Yeah, it's
small one.
Well, it was 2009 was the big one, wasn't it?
Yeah, but with the one with Reiss must have been the 90s.
Oh, that was late 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, 90s.
No, 90, round when I... No, when it would have been, I don't know.
No,
but it was... I know that I had to weather it.
Yeah.
But we did amazing. I did amazing with David Reiss. But so I was nervous about that. This guy came along. He told me he's going to build the business to 100 million.
Did you believe it?
Yeah. I mean, because he asked me at the time, actually, he said, how big do you think AllSaints could be? And I just said, bigger than Virgin. And he went, really? And I went, why not? And
As in
Richard
Virgin.
Branson was the most successful...
I was going to say, that's his
business in Britain.
Well,
that was, you know, so, and he went, oh, fuck off, don't be stupid. And I went, why not? I did a vodka for Christmas. I got Seriously Vodka or something. I got them to give me like 500 bottles, and I did a label that was a cross made out of skulls and a skull made out of crosses, and I put them behind the till, and you could get a free bottle of AllSaints vodka with every purchase of 500 quid.
Nice.
And we put it behind the till in November or whatever, and I think by mid-December they'd all gone. And I was like, we need to go into booze. We need, you know, we were giving it away as a...
Yeah.
But we were also, people were then, they'd come in, buy the leather jacket and think, oh, fuck it, I'll get a pair of jeans in it. And they would, because they want... I remember going to a party once, and after somebody's house would go back and they go, guess what I've got? They didn't know who I was. And they went, look what I've got. And they pulled out and they went, and everyone, they mates going, that's his business. Like, you know.
That must have been a nice, the moments like that must mean something, right?
It was, for me, it was, beautiful. It was
insane.
Like,
yeah.
Insane, yeah.
That moment of like, people, it's not me anymore. I've created something that's not fully me. Do you know what I mean? It's bigger than me in that sense.
It was, and I remember, you know, taking my kids to school. Yeah. And I never told anybody anything.
Why was that?
I don't know, because I don't like this sort of flash.
Yeah, I get it.
You know, I didn't really, I don't know, I just didn't, you know, they didn't need to know, and but then someone found out, and I think there was an article in the Times or something, right. and all of a sudden everyone at the school, it was like I remember turning up after then. It was when Beckham and Posh and Becks were going. It was like that. Suddenly everyone looked at us in a different way, and it was kind of like a little bit uncomfortable because I just wanted to
do your thing,
do my thing. Yeah.
So the idea that it could get big, that was what was sort of sold to you then? Is that what you're saying? So it was the idea of growth and being bigger?
Well, I remember
it was an idea of support as well?
I needed support, yeah. The idea was, I'm going to come in and I'm going to help you, and we're going to take this, and this is what the business, and as a businessman, what you should be thinking about is the business, not you, and what does the business need? Well, what the business needs is someone to take all the pressure off me, and I can concentrate on design, and they will build the business and scale it, and I don't have to worry about anything other than designing clothes, fly around the world and open shops in New York.
Did it feel like you were being sold the dream for you personally as well then?
Yeah. I mean, because it was a stress-free living and all that, and I didn't have to worry. I wouldn't have to worry about any of the other parts of it, just designing.
Were you quite burnt out on the other parts that you didn't like?
No, because I had this other partner that was kind of doing it.
So you had that bit.
But I had someone else that could take it to another level. So,
and what happened?
He bought out the guy from Birmingham, right. and then there was a silent partner. He bought him out, and then he had majority share, and he basically ground me down over a year to a point that it was either him or me, and he obviously had a whole lot more money than I did, and he made me an offer, and it was a bit like a gun to the head sort of moment where I didn't really have a choice. And so I also was worried about that point that, what happens if there is a huge downturn? And what, 15 million turnover, whatever, if you're 10%, down, that's £1.5 million.
Numbers get big and scary, don't they?
Yeah, it's a little bit.
When you came in, did you have a different perspective on designing? Did it change what you were designing and how you wanted to design?
No, because it was just
same thing.
I was, right. But he started bringing in new people that had worked at places like French Connection, thinking this is how you need to run the business. You need to work to. I can't even remember what they're called now, but you have to. They have all these different steps. Everything needs to be done in a certain way. I never ever did that. I was just like, always, running by the seat of my pants and analysing, because you never knew. It was fun. I wasn't really interested in. I wasn't really bothered about the money side of it, and I wasn't really. And I had also, if you remember, I was opening 5 stores in 1 year, then one new store every so all the money was getting. I wasn't really paying myself huge amounts of money. It wasn't really at that point. I was thinking at that point, maybe it'd be nice to have a lump sum of money in the bank, and then it all happened, and I thought, well, I've done it once, I could do it again. So
day one of being out of it, do you remember that, week one of?
I got on a flight to the Maldives, and
that's the best thing you could have done, probably.
So I went diving for a month.
Really?
So and
did you kind of need to do that at that point?
No, I booked it in advance, and it just so happened that the day he planned it, that it was Christmas Eve or something, that we were leaving that afternoon, that evening or whatever.
What do you mean he planned it?
He said that basically he wanted to buy me out, and then kind of manipulated it to that point. It was kind of evil. He was manipulating it to that point that if I didn't agree to what he was going to do, they were going to liquidate the business and I would get nothing. So I had to. They made me an offer, and then they carried on. And what they were going to do it, because if they had liquidated it over the Christmas period, all the big, businessmen like Richard Branson or Philip Green or whatever, they would all be in Sandy Lane in Barbados on holiday, and no one would know, and he could basically steal AllSaints from me. So I did a deal
out of where it would be.
So it was all horrible. Listen, he borrowed 198 million about 2 years after that, and then blew it in 4 years, and then they and were on the verge of bankruptcy when the people came in, and the current owners bailed them out. And they
how do you look at the brand now? How do you feel about it when you see it?
So I don't really look at it, but people say to me, "God, fucking hell, boy, they need you back. It's so boring now." But it's a huge business now. It's it's at least it's not shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's still part of your legacy, though, right?
Yeah,
and that's important, and you did so much.
I'm very proud of it. I think it looks great, and they do actually credit me every now and again. They do say, talk about the original vision of Stuart Trevor. So that's it's nice to be, because I never got that when that guy bought it from me. They
really
tried to write me out of the equation for
that. Must be tough.
No, it was annoying, but you just. What can you do?
No, true. So even after all that, and after a bit of time in the Maldives, you were ready to go again?
Yeah, almost
straight
immediately.
Away.
I started another. Almost immediately. Yeah.
So what did you want? What did you want to do next, and what did you want to do differently?
I wanted to make everything in the UK. I wanted to use it or Italy or Portugal.
Okay.
And I wanted.
What was the reason for that? Sorry, just because
another reason I sold AllSaints, because he moved all the production to China, and I was furious.
Where was it before that?
We used to do about 20-30% in the UK, about 10% in Italy, about 20% in Portugal.
Yeah.
And we would make things like leather jackets in India and beaded dresses and shirts and hand embroidered stuff in India.
Yeah.
And we'd make fine gauge knitwear in China. Things that you couldn't make at the right price in Europe. Yeah. I love working with. I used to love when I worked at Reiss. Virtually everything was made in Italy. So I used to love flying to Milan. On a Sunday night.
Yeah.
And and going right from Como to Biella to Brescia to
Wow.
Bologna, staying over each night and going to a different restaurant with a different factory, a different fabric mill. It was fucking
That must be
beautiful.
some of the nicest evenings you had.
I remember I used to plan it so that I could get to Rimini or Riccione,
Right.
which is on the coast, and this
Okay.
would be in the winter time, and I would stay at the Grand Hotel Riccione, which is where they filmed Federico Fellini filmed Ortomezzo, which
Right.
is one of the best. It's a huge, beautiful Grand Hotel, and I would get the King's Suite, and it would be like 30 quid a night because no one else was there. It was fucking freezing. But I had this enormous palazzo.
Wow.
And I used to love it.
And touring around, like even Italy, like from a design perspective, that must also must influence a lot of creativity for you,
Yeah.
right? That must be a very key element, because if it's all out in China, it's, you know, it's a longer commute, and how's the influence?
There's no inspiration out there.
So was that a big part with your next thing? You wanted to go back to what you purely love?
I wanted to go back and go back to making things in UK and Europe.
Yeah.
And I'd had enough of flying 13 hours to Hong Kong 4 times a year.
Yeah.
And I had kids by that point who were 10, 6 and 2, and so one of them wasn't even born. So we had the youngest one was born 2 years after I started Bolongaro Trevor. That was the next brand.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to travel because I wanted to be with my kids, and I didn't mind, you know, going to Italy or to Paris, France. I mean, I actually, when I think about it now, you know, you asked me earlier about how did you build it. I used to spend. We would fly. I would fly to Hong Kong 4 times a year. Fly to Paris 4 times a year. Fly to New York twice a year. LA twice a year. I mean, I just was.
Was it like 35 weeks minimum traveling out of the year?
Just all the time. I don't know how I managed to do it. And I used to remember as well whether the time you would go on those trips, and I would be desperate to get back. I would never stay for an extra week on a holiday or whatever, because I just wanted to get home.
Be home.
So yeah, when I launched Bolongaro Trevor, I didn't want to travel the world anymore. I don't know a bit.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and we built that, and that was amazing. We dressed
Were
every.
you building that in the recession?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Because we had that relationship with all these bands.
Yeah.
When I launched Bolongaro Trevor, they all rang me. So all these other bands, so we dressed Kasabian, The Who, Depeche Mode, Placebo, Prodigy, Destiny's Child. They used to turn up and I, you know, dressed The Who for the Olympics, for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Loads of. So that was kind of fun as well. So you know, I had a lot of fun doing that.
With that brand, did you want to keep that a bit smaller as a brand than the bigness that AllSaints had got to?
Yeah.
Was that ever a thought?
There was never any. You just to pay. You know,
You roll with it.
Yeah, you're not gonna not. As you build a business,
Yeah.
you know, if the business goes huge, then you know what you're going to do. You can't.
No,
say,
of
I'm not
course.
gonna, so you just do whatever you know. But I wasn't really ever. I also kind of remember the stress that I'd been under. I wasn't really stressed or whatever. I just didn't. I obviously wanted to be a success, but it wasn't about money. It was more about I just want to create and enjoy myself. And you look at. I always compare myself to David Bowie, as in he had a period of the Thin White Duke and Ziggy Stardust, or he would go through different things. You get bands like Radiohead. Tom York goes off and creates another band called The Smile, because he's sick of playing Creep and stadiums. He wants to play small gigs or whatever. I quite enjoy the first 5 years are the most enjoyable of building a business. I mean, because once you get to about 5 minutes, it's easy. You don't even have to turn up. You've got everyone that'll do it, but it's boring.
Yeah.
So so we're now at that period with Stuart Trevor. We're building a business. It is great fun. I love it.
So how long were you doing that for? So from 2008?
I did that 2007 to 2017, 16, 17.
Wow.
And we sold that to... I had some Middle Eastern company that came in. They wanted to open stores in the Middle East. And through the recession, business, you know, we realised the word in 2010. Selfridges, for instance, we were quoted as the fastest growing brand in menswear, and they increased their order from 100,000 to 250,000 for autumn winter 2010. And at the last minute, they turned it into sale or return. And so did everyone told me that, God, there's no recession as far as Bolongaro Trevor's concerned. We fucking sold everything, you know. So we were like, they were doubling the orders, and I was like, I need guarantees. They were like, guarantee, don't worry, you're the best-selling, you're way outsold Paul Smith, you're way outsold Westwood, you'll be selling more than Armani, we're going to give you a whole section, all this sort of stuff. And then they didn't want to pay for it. Because 2010, Selfridges went from 800 million to 700 million. And so it doesn't matter how well they were doing with buy, they couldn't afford to pay everybody. So the Middle Eastern people came along and they helped fund the business through that period, and then they wanted to open, and I didn't want to do it anymore. I'd kind of lost. I was split up with my wife at that time. Was now my ex-wife. She was the women's wear designer. I was the menswear designer. She was the women's wear designer at AllSaints. Well, when we were young, we did that.
Yeah,
and so I just didn't want to. I didn't want to do that anymore. I thought I'd
was the fashion space changing in the 2010s?
Yeah, well, yeah, because online came in.
Yeah,
wholesale started going down. You couldn't get paid by people like Selfridges and Harvey Nichols and Barney's New York went bankrupt. And people, hundreds of millions all over the world, and it just became all of that was like we started doing online. I mean, I launched Bolongaro Trevor online. We were doing 20 grand a week within 6 months online.
In the 2010s?
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, we replaced what we'd lost. I had all that stock that I'd made for Selfridges, and so I had to sell it. So we built a photographic studio. I had models in every day, photographed it, put it online, and started. And that was when Twitter. I had about 8 stores or 6 stores at the time, and each one would have a Twitter. Like, Bolongaro Trevor Soho, Bolongaro Trevor...
Really? On Twitter?
And they would be on Twitter tweeting outfits, and people would turn up off the back of tweets and buy stuff. So, and then online,
Coming from your, the AllSaints stuff where you really cared about retail and space and physical and that kind of element, to then move online, did you feel it was translating the vision? How do you look at that?
Yeah,
does it lose a bit of that for you?
It does, yeah. So, and that was another reason why we got offered a load of money and I took it and thought,
away from that.
Fuck it,
With a plan?
No, I thought about moving to Australia. I thought about buying a Winnebago and driving to Japan with the kids.
Awesome.
And then I realised that the kids were, by that point, about 15... 12 or 15, 10 and 5 or something. So I realised, I can't really take them out of school for 6 months a year. They never really, people...
It just didn't work.
It didn't work. So in the end, I had, split up with my wife. I started doing consultancy work for brands like Pasha in Ibiza, was putting collections together for them.
Did you like that stuff? Did you like the consultancy stuff?
It was kind of weird, no, because you're not, I'm not used to having anybody telling me what to do. You put a collection together. It was funny with this Pasha. I put the collection together. They wanted me to move to Ibiza. I didn't really want to do that, again, because of the kids. So I put this collection together. And then before all the samples turned up, there was a phone call. They were like, we decided that we're not going to go with it. And I was like, okay, why? That we don't like, we just want T-shirts with cherries on it. I'd done that whole thing with a Hawaiian shirt and matching shorts, and I did it in, something with cherries on it. I did all different variations of it. They really didn't, and this was, this thing became fucking huge in around 2018, 19. So it was around that, and anyway, the samples turned up and I got a phone call. Hey, Mr. Trevor, can you get on the next flight? And I'm like, what's up? They goes, the samples have arrived. We absolutely love them. So I flew into Ibiza. The next, I was the creative director of Pasha again after being sacked about a month before. It's fucking nuts. So I didn't enjoy it.
It just wasn't you. Though.
I didn't really like. I'm used to doing my own thing, so I did enjoy it though. It was kind of fun. They were nuts though. They would be.
Sounds it.
They would be like, you'd fly. They'd go, right, okay, we're going for dinner tonight, corporate dinner. I'm like, okay, where are we having dinner? They say at Pasha, and I'm like, but it doesn't open till midnight. And the restaurant, and I'm going, well, what time are we having dinner? Thinking 8, 9. They go, midnight, and I'm like, we're having dinner at midnight, and they would. You'd have dinner at midnight, and you'd be thinking, this is nuts. 2 a.m, they go, come on, we're going in the club. And I'm like, we're doing the presentation tomorrow. What are we talking about? No, you come with me. Bottles of vodka. And they were, and then of course you turn up at the studio the next day to present the collection. None of them turned up. They were all in bed with a hangover.
Flipping out. And then after a couple of years, you decided to go for the third time with what you're doing now.
Well, I had a period where I was mentoring young brands that have a positive social environmental impact. So, and I'd met a guy who told me he was running an impact accelerator, and I didn't know what that was. I thought it was the brakes on a car or something. Impact accelerator means that brands that have a positive social environmental impact, they take these young brands and they help accelerate growth.
Right.
So he had, there was bakeries with victims of domestic abuse. They would, bring them on board and get them out of a bar, then talk about it so that, primarily women would stand up and say, my life was ruined by an abusive relationship, and because a lot of people go through a horrendous abusive relationship and feel guilt and don't want to talk about it. Yeah. So there was, and then there was a coffee roasters that had employed ex-offenders, taught them to become barista so that, 2 Liverpudlians, their schoolmates, were in jail for selling beak, and when they came out, they teach them to become a barista. They get a job all over the world, so they stay out of jail. And there was a denim company that were taking vintage jeans and customising them, and she was like this girl, a company called Fanfare Label, Esther. She was like, we don't need to make another pair of jeans ever again, and there's more jeans on the planet than there's 150 billion garments a year in production, and all these other statistics, like every 7 seconds there's a pile of clothes the height of Mount Everest going in a landfill. So I researched it all, and I'm like,
every 7 seconds
there's a pile of clothes the height of Mount Everest.
But where does it go? Like, I just don't. How do they fit it in? Like, where's this all going?
It's so companies like ASOS are 970 million turnover, losing 150 million a year on year. They've got warehouse in Milton Keynes with 5 million garments in it. They did, and they were burning it, and they were sending it to Ghana, and they were, charity stores are dealing with 90 tons of waste a day. I've been to sorting centres in Kettering for Salvation Army. They've got, all those food those banks in Sainsbury's and Asda car parks. They're emptying them 3 times a day. People are buying clothes that they don't need, having to empty out. I
remember coming out of COVID and just going past those recycling centres, and even like having to book the old tip and skip because they were getting so filled up with people's IKEA stuff. But you go past the clothing ones and they are just like overflowing.
I mean, I've been to Ghana
with labels still on them as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of it. A lot of it is fast fashion. Right. But then there was companies like Burberry's, but they got caught burning £28 million worth of stock. And there are new EU law directives coming in that everyone has to abide by. So,
well, from a brand side, just so I can understand it a little bit, what's the reason why that happens? Is it just purely they order too much stuff, they make too much, they've over-ordered, or is that just purely the problem?
If you go back to the reactive buying bit that I was saying, when I ran AllSaints, I would test the waters, and if something sold, I would plough in and order 500.
Yeah.
They don't. They just order 500 of everything. And of course,
why? Surely there's such a amount of cash they're losing, or is it just so minuscule at that point?
They don't care because they're making it all in Bangladesh out of polyester. It's cheapest chips or cheap. They don't care. And then the online thing, everybody's buying. Women and men are buying. They see a jumper or, they buy a small, a medium, a large, and an extra large when they know that they're an extra large. Yeah. But they're hoping that they might fit in a small. And then they return it all. And And at one point, companies like ASOS and Reno or Next, or all of them were, it's cheaper just to send it off to charity stores and send it off to Ghana than it is to pay someone in England to iron it and fold it back up and put it back in the shelf and then send it out. It was because they were producing things, a billion pieces in Bangladesh for £2 an item. So it was cheaper it cost them £2 to process it. In the UK, it's cheaper to get rid of it.
What do you think has to change at the top?
All of that's got to change.
But how do they change it? Regulation?
By teaching the general public. So that's that's what I set out to do 3 years ago by launching Stuart Trevor. What about a clothing brand that doesn't produce any clothing? I was taking those young startup brands to investors, trying to get them funding.
Right.
And all these investors, look, several of them were like, I used to love AllSaints. I don't like it anymore, but why don't you do another brand? And I'd be like, oh, mate, the last thing the world needs is another clothing brand. And they're like, but AllSaints is kind of boring now. I want to look like you. And I'm like, well, this is just a bomber jacket. And I made some patches, and my daughter, I was teaching her how to design things and customize upside. They're like, I'd love that fucking bomber. And I could, and so I went away and I thought, what about a clothing brand that doesn't produce any clothing? These bomber jackets are 90s dead stock. I've got a warehouse in north of England that has about 1,000, 2,000 of these in different colours. They've been sitting there for 10, 20 years, 30 years. Brand new, yeah. And so I get hold of them, I print these patches, I sew them on, I have a little label I've got my little Stuart Trevor ST David Bowie inspired label, and then I have a little white label that I zigzag stitch on it and I sign it.
Yeah.
And if you buy it, your name goes on there, the date, and so it's like almost creating love walking works of art.
Yeah.
So they're almost like, it's a little bit over the top. Some of it's plain. We do a plain bomber as well.
Yeah.
So, but there are thousands of these, but these guys didn't know what to do with them. So they've not only these, they've got, that military stuff I was telling you about. I used to buy it, and I used to buy all these military jackets and take them to factories in Italy and fabric mills and copy the fabric and copy the pattern and get them made and order 500, 1,000. I go to these warehouses, they've still got 1 million garments in there, and I can go in there, and I started off doing some sort of flak shirts, and I cut the back out, I put this sort of beaded sequin sort of fabric on it, or I got these denim shirts and I added embroidery like this onto it, and yeah, people, and it's all garments that are sitting there that already exist, and we just make them cool.
Epic.
And people love it. So, because the one thing that we're not going to do is we can't stop people wanting to buy clothes, because everybody, when it's
addiction, isn't it?
It is an addiction, but also everybody wants to look. Even computer nerds nowadays know that they need to. Even Steve Jobs or whatever, he knew he used to wear an Issey Miyake turtleneck and but he knew that he defined his own look, and he might wear the same thing every day. But everyone knows that if you don't. If you wear interesting clothes, you have an interesting life. That's a Vivienne Westwood quote. But if everyone takes care of how they look, and everybody wants to buy something, well, they come to Stuart Trevor. If you look on our website, stuarttrevor.com, everything is it's made from clothes that already exist, so it's guilt-free. So you're not we don't produce anything. So everything
all upcycled.
It's all upcycled, every single thing. And we did runway shows. We did the world's first ever designer runway show that had every single item was upcycled from clothes that already exist, and people flew in from all over the world to St. Louis, Missouri. A lot of them vintage collectors to see it, and they were like, "Yeah, I've seen it all before." And then when it came out, they were like, "Fucking hell, that is incredible!" All these parkas with these extra patches on, or embroidery, or beaded, and we had hand painting on them and things like this, and it's a total. So when I started doing that about 3 years ago, everyone thought I was insane. I even thought I was insane. I was like, people were like, "How are you going to scale this?" I had no idea, but I did know. I'm not stupid. I did know that if I was to announce that I was doing a new label, no one's going to write about it, because there's far too many clothing brands in the world. But if you were to announce What about a clothing brand that doesn't produce any clothing? I'm going to create a whole collection made from clothes that already exist.
Yeah.
People have done that sort of thing before, but most of it is rubbish. Most of it is, a jacket made out of a pair
random
of trousers,
stuff as well.
Random, weird. Yeah. What I do is less is more, and it looks really cool. People ask me all the time, you're like cool as guy. What you did, Reiss, you did AllSaints, you did Bolongaro. I used to buy. I never ever thought I was cool. I was always striving to be cool. I wanted to be cool, so I produced something, and I never ever thought I was, even with AllSaints. Now I look at what I'm doing and I think, fucking hell, that's cool. I walk in.
Do you feel like it's almost your proudest brand you create?
Yeah, everyone does.
Yeah,
anyone that's in the fashion business, I get everybody that I've known in my career, in my life, read me go, fucking hell, mate, what you're doing is incredible. And I honestly can actually laugh and go, I thank you. I honestly believe because it's, you wouldn't believe some of the stuff I get is, so I have a relationship with some of these 70-year-old men and women that have contracts with the Ministry of Defence, and they have been clearing out ex-Army, ex-RAF, ex-Royal Navy stuff for years, and they don't know what to do with it. So, and I go in there and take it and customise it and cut it into little cropped jackets and skirts, and it looks beautiful. Now we've got all the rock bands coming to us going, oh my God, this, I'll say it's in the Brit Awards next week. There's about 5 different bands have come to us for different things. It's really cool.
Fantastic. For you, I want to get some advice from you for those entering building brands, building fashion. You've done so many different brands now, and you found something that you're clearly so passionate about. What do you think the biggest piece of advice you could give to someone starting a fashion brand?
Don't. Someone used to say to me, how do you make a huge pile of money in the fashion business? And I would say you start with an enormous pile of money. And if you've got a huge pile of money after 2 years, you're on the right track.
But what do you think? I mean, take away the money, take away the business side of it, to become respected in the space by audiences, consumers, but also the peers.
In the fashion world or any... I think you have to put sustainability at the forefront of everything you do. I think it is our duty nowadays to buy from sustainable brands, to shop locally, to support young startup brands. All that, that's another reason why I called it Stuart Trevor rather than a pseudonym like AllSaints, because people don't trust brands anymore. All these billionaires, billionaire brands like Nike and ASOS and, Primark, they're like billionaires chasing trillionaire status, and they're willing to. They've got people in little factories in China that are living in concentration camp style billets. They sleep, they sleep 10 hours or 8 hours at night, and then they get up in the morning. They do a 14-hour day on a sewing machine or pressing, and then they go and see their family once a year during Chinese New Year. It's like human trafficking. Yeah. And why would anybody buy clothes that are made in these sort of like horrendous conditions? But all of that needs to stop. So we need to educate the general public to stop buying fast fashion. It's not just fast fashion as well as super brands. Years ago, Louis Vuitton, Dior, they were all supposedly luxury brands that had like beautiful quality. Now they're all made in the same factories in China, and it's all the same stuff, and they're producing billions. They're now multi-billion-dollar businesses, and they're chasing multi-trillion-dollar status, and there's nothing special about it. It actually makes me feel sick when I walk through somewhere like Westfield and you see Zara and all these millions of garments, and all of it is made from plastic, and polyester is polyester shirts and knitwear and everything it's all made from plastic bottles. They pull it so fine, very microfiber, and they knit it. But that's why you sweat. That's why in all these sportswear companies, everything is made from polyester. They say that it wicks the sweat away. That's bullshit. It's plastic. It just the water doesn't stick to it because it's plastic. Yeah. So, and everybody knows that you go running and you're clothes stink because you're wearing a plastic bag. Yeah. And polyester we're actually allergic to it. When I'm wearing a nylon bomber jacket. But this is actually US a US Army flight jacket.
Really?
So yeah, this is all military spec.
It's amazing. So what are you doing for the rest of the year? What's the ambition for 26?
Well, we're trying to build this business.
Yep.
We're 100% up on last year.
Wow! Congratulations.
So yeah, we're doing.
That's amazing.
Everything's, we're doing. It's all available on stuarttrevor.com. We have a studio in Hoxton. We invite people there.
Awesome.
To come and go shopping there. In the beginning, obviously, I want the business to become. We're about break even now.
Nice.
I want it to come into profit this year. But we're 100% up on last year. We're building it, and it's really enjoyable. I'm designing and creating new things all the time.
Yeah.
And it's fun, and it's enjoyable. So yeah, I just want to carry on doing that and get it to a point where it's not all me.
Yeah.
So we're at the early stages now. We'll probably hit 1 million this year.
Amazing.
And then next year too. Then but then I'll be able to employ people and try. And I do a lot of speaking. The reason I'm here today is to get the story out there, to encourage young people to. When you ask me what advice would I give, and I'm like don't or whatever. I think we need to encourage the youth to go out and do something and create new. There is, if you have the right idea and the right facilities and the right method. And one of the most important thing I would say right now is to put sustainability at the forefront of everything you do.
Fantastic. Well, Stuart, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you. It's been some incredible stories, some hilarious stories, and some deeply fascinating ones. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
A true inspiration. I appreciate your time. Best of luck for this year.
Yeah.
Hopefully another 100% for the year, and I'm sure we'll speak soon.
Yeah. Cheers.
Thank
you very much. Cheers.